I love the art of your sucker. This piece right here is titled Summer Belongs to Me, and it touches me in such a different way. And I know what you're thinking. Pilleater, you're such a degenerate. You really don't mean this. This is just some shock jock humor you're doing, right? No, it's not. You're completely missing the point of why I love this art and some of the messages that I like to speak about. Well, this piece by Your Sucker right here reminds me of two things. One, it reminds me of a red-haired Korean boy that used to live in my Manhattan dorm that I would go on a field trip with, and I would casually bump into him doing laundry. And another one reminds me of this kid, I believe, named John, who I met at a pig show in Philadelphia. He had kind of this chic goth look with crosses in his ears, and I believe he had a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt on. But anyway, I had this idea a month ago, and I wrote some notes about it, about this gay story that I would get this red-haired Korean boy, and I would get him into my dorm room, and we would make love listening to Starflyer's 59's Gold album, particularly the song Stop Wasting Your Whole Life. But instead, that rather happened with a Russian hipster chick instead. No, but this is really about the gay Asian punk boy aesthetic, which I think is a very important, almost queer cultural study that's being talked about and discussed, but no one has the taxonomy and words to describe it, which I tried to do 4 years ago, and I still kind of talk about it to this day. And, I found Your Sucker in Boyd Rice's circle, with Whale Song and Sean Partridge and the others. And I'll casually upload pictures, recently of David Bowie in Japan in the 1970s with his then girlfriend Sandy, who, by the way, is a great musician. And there's pictures of this Eurasianist coupling early on. And, the whole gang likes that, including Your Sucker, and I love Your Sucker's art back. So, I mean, I want to go back on the heterosexual relationships versus the homosexual ones because, the homosexual relationships are just as special. And I'm not saying that I'm going against Logos or anything, or that I'm some evil, subversive individual. I'm talking about relationships in the context of the West, or even Eastern, this kind of East and West clash. And Colin Liddell once told me that, in his own opinion, on a Reddit page, that a Japanese male and female look exactly the same, and he thought that the outsider is prone to this queer sexuality and is secretly gay. Well, then that's like saying, well, are all Japanese men gay, But, I mean, it's not a fetish. It's more like a sensitive emotion. And, heterosexual relationships in a material world, I believe, tend to fetish things and use objects as a social status. That they have to marry a trophy wife and buy a house in the suburbs and retain this kind of middle class hell for how long no, and I think that paradigm's dying. But the gay man is looking for emotion and what it means to be outside the norm. There's rules in a heterosexual relationship, and rules must fall a certain way. But if you grew up in Canton, Ohio, and you were the only Eurasian or adopted Asian American in that environment, and you went through verbal abuse and a helicopter mom, and bullied in high school, and had no friends and listened to no music, of course things are going to get, by definition, perverted. But through that vines, there is a flower that blossoms through that. And I think, between the golden age of youth, but as well as through 18 to 28, there is this kind of beautiful romantic comedy that could be scripted into something. And many Western writers have written this before. Well, I mean, you could actually say the same about Yukio Mishima in Confessions of a Mask, but he's more explicit on that matter. And so I believe, hypothetically, a subculture has pretty much happened through this upbringing, but especially in the context now that you have a non-white group of people in the Western context, and my focus is not on black men, not like gay. I have a gay black friend too, and Ty. He's super nice to me, and sometimes I like to joke and say he's my gay black boyfriend. But that's just as special. But in particular, I think there's a taxonomy and kind of subculture around kind of this gay Asian punk boy aesthetic, and that's what's really picking in my brain about what to think about this. So I want to go back to your sucker's art and this picture right here about Summer Belongs to Me. What your sucker tends to do is, I think he likes to draw himself, or draws this kind of black-haired Asian 20-something-year-old with some big muscles, but he looks like a woman, actually. It looks like a Korean tomboy cut hair with the bowl cut, looking straight directly at you. And it has this kind of nice serenity to it, with the collage art mixed with these Western pictures. So it's like invoking memories, but also at the same time child abuse or something. There's other Your Sucker pictures where there's other guys, or Hideshi Hino type of esque, or like maybe there'll be a black sun and a Totenkopf, kind of the neo-folk cliches and all. But in the context of the gay punk boy aesthetic. Going back, I remember John at the Pig Show in Philadelphia, and I was kind of just a lone wolf going to that, and I approached him because, he's a cool-looking Chinese hip guy, and I thought he was, and went up and had a conversation about him, and just like, oh yeah, this is great, and the things I like to do is because I'm so insecure about myself, and go, yeah, I did podcasts with Jamie Stewart of Juju, and yeah, I used to hang out with Mitski, and that kind of silly, and he likes that back. And then we were having a discussion about Asian Americans and kind of this art, and there needs to be more of that, but especially of kind of the queer outsider identity. And again, this was about almost 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half ago, but importantly, there was reaching something, this kind of identity, you want to call it the PragerU type of identity politics based around that. And maybe this fellow goth Asian, I was being a statesman and saying, I hope he's watching this right now, and being a statesman and saying, yeah, there needs to be more of that, what the condition feels like. And I forgot to mention, I was in a relationship a few months ago for like 4 weeks with a Japanese Eurasian intersex person, and I had very similar feelings with that, even, being comfortable in bed with that person. But this person before that person I met, gave me those feelings, like this was some kind of union being formed. And, me having this gaze, this homosexual gaze on this red-haired Korean boy with crooked teeth who talked like a girl or a femboy in the elevator, and going out on a field trip with him, it kind of sparks. Why? Why am I into that? What is the aesthetic? Aesthetics hold over subculture, kind of like in Dick Hebdage's work about subcultures. And maybe a mission statement of mine, and hopefully, is to create this taxonomy around the gay punk boy aesthetic, and again have this kind of union based around it, a network. I know, as silly as that sound, Freemason and whatnot. I think what needs to focus is more art, like Your Suckers, has to be made. And I am not shaming hetero relationships between white male, Asian female, or Asian male, white female. And I'm not saying homosexuals are better, making this gay manarbon elitism. What I'm saying is these intersect in some way. And I'm not arguing for some ultimate destroy all gender notions. Genders are different, whatnot. But again, you do have this egalitarianism in the strict sense between the West and the East. And the Eurasianism has this innate homosexuality or asexuality to it that must be further elaborated on.